Hi everyone, my name's Michelle. I'm one of your teachers at TAFE Digital in Community Services. Today we are going to look at the Cluster 4 Knowledge Assessment, which covers the units Organise Personal Work Priorities and Manage Personal Stresses in the Work Environment. I'm going to take you through each of the questions in the assignment and give you some advice and tips on how to complete this assignment and hopefully answer any questions that you might be thinking about. So the first things first, please make sure that you have put your student number and student name on the first page of the assignment. This is really important so that we can identify your work and just a good habit to get into. Make sure you read through the assessment instructions. There are 10 questions to complete in this assignment, and make sure that you complete every question before you submit to the OLS. It is also important that you reference your work. You can find some referencing guides on the OLS. If you need any help with that, you're welcome to contact the teachers and we can help you in that area. So we have 10 questions in this assignment. We're going to work through each one. I'll give you some hints and tips. First things first, make sure you read all of your learning material before you attempt this assignment. A lot of the answers will be in the readings, and I'll also show you that there are some extra readings on the library guide. We'll get to that a little bit further on. So, question 1. Working in the community services industry involves dealing with a high volume of clients with complex needs and often without the appropriate resources and support. Describe the strategies you could use to assess and prioritise your workload in order to ensure tasks are completed in a timely manner. What I've done here is highlighted the actual question with the verb in it. So describe the strategies you could use. That's the start of the question. We are looking for strategies, ways, different techniques that you might use to work out what is important, what needs to be done first to make sure that your tasks are done on time. So think about the types of tools that you might use, the information you might need to assess and prioritise your workload, people that you might consult with to determine this, and put that in your answer. We want you to describe, so this should be more than just a dot point list. It should be, you know, a paragraph or two describing the strategies. We want you to explain what they are. Question 2, considering your role as a community worker, identify your relevant state, territory and Commonwealth legislation and describe how it supports your work. So I have again highlighted the part of the question with the verb in it. So it wants you to identify, so name your relevant state, territory, and is underlined. So we want both state and territory as well as Commonwealth or federal legislation. So for this question, I would suggest looking into the areas of work that are relevant to your role as a community worker. This could include things like child protection, privacy and confidentiality, work health and safety. There's lots of different areas that we work within in the community services industry, and the legislation that you identify needs to show that you're aware of both the state level and the Commonwealth or federal level of legislation that covers these areas. So identifying is one part, but it also asks you to describe how the legislation supports your work. This doesn't have to be an essay. It's just a sentence or two about how it impacts your day-to-day work in the industry. Question number 3. Seeking feedback from colleagues and your supervisor is important as it creates an opportunity to reflect on your progress and performance. It also shows that you are willing to make changes and you are eager to perform at your best. Here's the highlighted section. Describe the strategies you would use to seek, receive, and analyse feedback in your role as a community services worker. So there are a few different areas here. You need to describe strategies or ways or tools or methods that you're going to use to seek, receive, and analyse. So seeking feedback is where you're asking someone about it. Receiving it is how you're going to process it. How are you going to listen? How are you going to take on board that feedback? And analysing is that next level where you're going to use it in some way. How are you going to make sense of it and then put it into practice? So make sure you cover those 3 areas in your answer. You're seeking, receiving, and analysing strategies in regards to your feedback about your work. Question 4. Describe 2 strategies for assessing your learning and development needs. Select one learning and development need you have identified and create a SMART goal. Then describe how you will monitor your progress against this goal. So I've again highlighted the critical points of this question. A lot of people miss parts of this question or don't quite understand how to tackle it. So firstly, we want 2 strategies or ways or methods that you assess your own learning and development needs. So we want a description. We want a bit of an explanation about how you're going to determine where your gaps might be. Think about ways you might do this in the workplace. It can be formal or informal. So we want 2 separate strategies that you use to do this. So once you've done that, you then need to select one learning and development need that you have identified. So where is an area that you need some more knowledge or some upskilling relevant to your role that you have identified through that process of assessing your needs? So select one, name it, put it in your answer. You then need to create a SMART goal. Now, SMART goals are covered in the readings for this cluster. I'm just going to switch over to the learning material area. So this is under resources and access your learning. You have your cluster 4 area. It's got the 2 units. Further down here, you've got your library guide and the 2 learning resources. This is where you will find information in your readings. I'm going to show you the library guide. This is a really great site. It's got some extra readings and resources relevant to the cluster. For this question, question 4, I want you to go to Organise Personal Work Priorities and then the subpage Professional Reflection and Development. And here we've added some goals over on the right-hand side, some video and some readings that might help you with this question. So take your time to have a look around this library guide site. It will definitely help you with your assignment. So the SMART goal, you need to state your SMART goal. And then after you've done the SMART goal, describe how you will monitor your progress against this goal. strategies or ways that you're going to measure that progress? How do you know that you're working towards achieving that goal? Describe to us how you're going to do that. Question 5. Complex client behaviour can sometimes be a result of stress. Identify 2 behaviours that would indicate to you that a client is experiencing stress. So imagine a client coming to you. What kind of behaviours might be that telltale sign that they are under some kind of stress? The question asks you to identify. So you don't need to explain to us here. You just need to, name those 2 behaviours clearly in your answer that indicate that a client is experiencing stress. Question 6. Grief and loss can contribute to stress. What are 2 indicators that you or a colleague or client are experiencing stress from grief and loss? So similar to question 5, we're only asking you for 2 indicators. So just provide those 2 indicators in your answer. Try and make them different from question 5. This is a specific question about grief and loss. So we want indicators that would suggest that the stress is coming directly from a source of grief and loss, and put those in your answer. Question 7. Working in the community sector can be demanding. What are 2 indicators that a worker is experiencing work-related stress? Now, we don't really want a personal life story here. We all go through our own versions of work-related stress at different times in our life, I'm sure. But the indicators can be universal. There are some indicators of work-related stress that are very general. That's what we want to see in this answer. So we only want you to name 2 indicators for your answer, and they need to be specific to work-related stress. So what are the telltale signs of yourself, or a colleague or a worker in general are experiencing work-related stress? So try to avoid the use of, well, I have experienced it when I have had, headaches and things like that. We don't want that personal aspect of your work-related stress, but it might be one of the indicators as a whole. As for most people, headaches might be one example. That would be all you'd need to write. We don't need that personal reflection here. Okay, question 8. What are 2 work planning and prioritisation techniques? So we want 2 different techniques or strategies or tools that you use for your work planning and prioritisation. Think about some of the technology that you might use, your time management strategies. There might be templates that you use at work. They would be considered techniques. So any kind of strategy that you use to prioritise tasks, making sure that you're keeping on top of your work plan and to-do list. You only need to provide 2 examples of those. Question 9. All workers in Australia are entitled to general protections under the Fair Work Act 2009, Commonwealth. Go to the Fair Work website and research and summarise these protections. So I've highlighted the part of the question that we're looking for here, research and summarise. So we want to see evidence of research. You will need to provide a reference for this answer, or at least one reference. We've given you the link to the Fair Work website. There is also information in your readings about the Fair Work Act, which should help you. You should also reference that information if you use it. So we want evidence of research and we want evidence that you have summarised these protections. We do not want a copy and paste from the website or the readings. We want to see a summary in your own words that has been taken from external research that show us you understand what these protections mean. So please, please, please do not copy and paste directly from a website. That is not research. The research is you pulling those sources together and summarising, putting it into your own words so that we can see you understand it. So what are the rights of workers and what are they protected from? What are some of the things that the Fair Work Act protect workers from in the workplace? Question 10, and the final question for this assignment, is identify one self-care technique for each of the following. A, caring for your physical health. B, maintaining a work-life balance. And C, a complementary or alternative health option. These ones seem straightforward, but it is surprising how many people get them confused. We want 3 different self-care techniques. So some might overlap. So you may be caring for your physical health by participating in a complementary health option. However, we do want to see 3 different techniques, but one for each of those categories in the question. So in your answer, you should really be writing A, and then your response for caring for your physical health. How are you doing that? B, how are you maintaining a work-life balance? What's the technique that you use to do that? And C, a complementary or alternative health option. What is your example? Making sure it doesn't overlap with A or B. Now, make sure you consider those complementary or alternative health options. Quitting smoking is beneficial, for example, but it's not a complementary health option. We're really looking for those proactive options that support self-care. So, an example is getting a massage, remedial massage, for example. So have a look at the readings, think about ones that you might use, and make sure that you've done a separate example for each of those 3 areas. So I'll just go back to the library guide again. Remember, you've got links for each of the units in this cluster. You also have the readings here and a workbook. You've got all of the areas. Make sure you read these thoroughly before submitting your assignment. This one looks a little bit different. You can go to additional resources and download a Word document of these readings if you prefer the Word version, but the rest of the readings are included when you navigate down the sidebar. So that is it from me today. I wish you well in your Cluster 4 Knowledge Assessment, and I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions following this recorded webinar, please feel free to reach out to the teachers. You can contact us through your OLS or give us a call on 0297158299. You can also email us directly with the question, and we'll be happy to get back to you when we can. Thank you for joining the webinar, and we'll talk to you soon.